I tune out what they say. I remember days way back then I ain't really ever placed, but I ain't never lose faith. They ain't part of my fate. What you know about risking everything just to make some shake?
Sup? I know this is probably gonna be weird for you guys because I usually take a lot of time and effort to try and split these up into different months, but for season 2, I figured why don't we do some Muse Perspective minis, where I just look into certain projects and certain different individuals, and then off the top of the dome, I just talked to you guys about what I kind of can piece together for similarities and stuff I kind of like from just a couple of key songs. Is it gonna be something I'm gonna do a lot of times? Not really. I'm only gonna be doing about 7 of these, but I figured since I can't do huge musical productions, why don't I do something about 2 different musicals, about 2 different things in Greek myth? So, right here, right now, even though I am probably not in my perfect avatar form, we're gonna be talking about Hadestown and Epic the Musical, because Epic just finished out its concept album to where it's beginning the talks to be an actual stage production, video games, animated film, and others thanks to the app known as TikTok, whether it's going to be here or not by the time this is finished being recorded and edited and posted. I do not have the variables on that one because Hermes will not fucking tell me! And then we have Hadestown. Hadestown being a staple musical that was more successful off-Broadway, become a Broadway production, but I still am going to be using the off-Broadway soundtrack because that one kind of slaps a lot harder and actually feels a lot more grittier and more in-depth to what I like about the original myth it's based on. So with all that being said, yeah, let's get to this Muse Perspective mini, shall we? Before we jazz it up, let's go into the whole gaming sphere with Epic the Musical. Written, produced, directed by Jorge Miguel Rivera-Herrans himself. Epic is the retelling of the Odyssey from the last 10 days of the Trojan War, which is going to go into the Iliad and the Agamemnon and so many other books covering what is either the first or second Trojan War. Mythology is weird. We're following Odysseus' journey from Troy back to Ithaca. It's filled to the brim with what you'd expect. It's got different action sets, it's got different monsters, it's got different gods, but it also has music that is ear-catching, like it is one of the most dulcet earworms you'll ever have. 9 different albums for an entire concept album, filled to the brim with 40 tracks. It was only gonna be 80 at first, then have other stuff making it longer, but we got it cut down to 40 for the entirety of the roster. Not a bad deal. It is also probably one of the newer modern musicals that I do not have an issue with when it comes to mythology.
If you know, you know.
So, what is the highlighted stuff I could talk about from the overall concept album from all 9 sagas that go into the epic that is, well, epic? I think the crucial ones to talk about are at least 3 representatives over the whole span of them, where the first one I could talk about would be Ruthlessness from the Ocean, sometimes known as the Storm Saga, that pays homage to everything that was going forth from the horse and the infant, talking about what Odysseus would be fighting, who he would be fighting, the foe that he cannot run from, and what that would mean if he cannot do the job, as well as all the other stuff like how his luck is running out here and there, all these other things, especially how he has spurned Athena, although it was kind of like a mutual thing between the two. I don't care what anyone else says. They were both wrong on both sides of the spectrum. And it culminates into Poseidon's own rage towards Odysseus, not bothering to kill his youngest son, who is still mentally a child, as well as just trying to make sure that he never said to his dad, "This is who blinded me and left me alive," which is one of the biggest insults to the gods of, like, if you're gonna do something for honor and for glory, you take them out, they end up in whatever afterlife you want to think about, or if you want to go the Rick Riordan route, they all rematerialize and regenerate forever and ever to test heroes, and then we have that solved. We don't get that, but instead we just get Poseidon getting pissed at Odie for being the smartest dumbass in mythology. That is a weird oxymoron there. The second one that is a good representative would be from the, I would honestly say, the Underworld saga. and that is no longer you. Why do I say no longer you? Because if we're gonna be honest, it paves the way for a lot of different stories and elements that really streamline towards what each saga is gonna end up, which then culminates into the final structure, which is Odysseus within the song of the Ithaca saga at the end of Odysseus' whole journey. Everything is spelled out in a very cryptic and very off-the-cuff sort of way if people are trying to keep it super vague because they see all of time and space in a very iffy sort of manner, like it's all fuzzy and diluted, like it's a dreamy effect, and that's fine. But then to try and cover it from a prophet to then convey it to another person, it's so murky and mysterious that you don't know what's gonna happen, even though it does talk about Scylla, it does talk about Calypso, it does talk about Odysseus killing all of the suitors, blah 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 blah, to create the Greek tragedy that we do know from this epic, because at the end of the day, it's not a positive or negative narrative, it's a Greek tragedy. It predates the notion of a positive or negative because everyone is morally gray in a story like this. There are no heroes and villains in the conventional sense. It's all about a morality play and stuff about what is a cautionary tale for others. The last most important song I would want to talk about would be the final song, Would Fall in Love with You. Because as a send-off song for an entire musical like this, there is so much to really touch on to where it does, from how many people saw the final stanza, matches up to the pacing about why there are 9 sagas in general for counting down the waiting for you to be the culminating factor of like all of those as a petering effect to just go into why waiting was a repeating track note for a lot of different things within the overall saga. As well as it does pave off the notion for, as much as Odysseus, whether we want to debate whether he was faithful, was he not faithful, was he involved with Circe, was he just friends with Circe, was he assaulted by Calypso, was it just a common misunderstanding because of how the Greeks / Romans / all historians want to paint that vision, is it all of these things? At the end of the day, Odysseus and Penelope do have a healthy romance that has transcended the testament of time about what it means to be a family man, regardless of how the journey itself paves out, and it does culminate into a beautiful send-off note for others. I'm saying it all like this in this mini music perspective because the more I'm kind of thinking about it, the more it's just, we do not get a broader picture. We do not get a broader picture of stuff. We're just inserting what we believe is happening. We do not have the control about if Calypso really did do certain things to Odysseus or if Odysseus did certain things to Circe. It's all up to the interpretation of the listener because Jorge himself is just like, I write the songs, I know the exact vision of where the song's supposed to go, but I'm not saying these certain things and actions are happening. All I'm doing is painting the story for you to make the interpretations until I'm able to do stuff with my team to make this story and the production and even the movie and video game that I want to do. Which I think is kind of a better thing to do as a musical director than just trying to be, this is an exact fact, this is that and the third thing. He's giving freedom to creatives before he showcases the vision because he doesn't want things to be so overt with everything, which also pays off to the orators back in Greek times that wanted to share these things, whether it was the Mycenaeans, whether it was the Chthonic, whether it was the actual ancient Greeks, whether it was people from the various different islands and even the Romans that would take over stuff from Greece. It's never about what you yourself know it to be, it's your interpretation about what each message is going to be. That's beautiful in how its execution is, but I want to stop there because I have already taken way too much time for you guys to hear me ramble and boast about Epic when I've already got 7 videos lined up talking about songs and starting up a few different one-man covers of a few songs I've had my eye on.
I must say, what a brilliant speech you gave.
Who goes there?
Just a friend who could help you save your men.
From video games of the newer, big shot for everything, to the slightly younger, more jazzy affair We go on down, baby, to Hadestown. Way down under the ground, where we're just also looking at some of the most beautiful eccentricities about how to cover a wonderful story of tragic love that's torn apart by dumbassery, honestly. Inspired by the myth of Orpheus and Eurydice, or Eurydice, or there's so many ways to pronounce this goddamn name. I don't want to fucking hear it in the comments. I've tried, okay? It's also a story that covers the tumultuous marriage between Hades and Persephone. Not that they're gonna get divorced, that they don't love each other, but Persephone feels like Hades has gotten kind of lazy and is becoming a little bit more of the, I want my wife here, I miss my wife here, why does she have to go see the sun? I give her everything. And she's like, baby, I need my space. We spend 6 months of the year together. Give me 6 months to breathe, okay? I'm not leaving you, but I want you here. It's a very, very tragic time, honestly. I hope those crazy kids get it sorted. I really, really do. So, I could be going over the official Broadway soundtrack and the cast, but that was not what got me into this musical in the first place, which is also the subject of me doing a whole bunch of videos and some covers of these things. I have a problem. But from a whole entire musical that has a jazz, ragtime, and even sort of a sultry R&B vibe in places, Hadestown really is that musical, you know what I mean? And this is coming from someone that's not a musical fan or even a theater kid per se. Like, yeah, I've done theater, but not to the extent of like theater. If you get what I mean, you get what I mean. So, all in all, it wasn't for a bunch of different songs that got me hooked, but I will say that the song known as Songbird, or Hey Little Songbird to be exact, and Epic 3 were the two tracks that hooked me as a listener. Got me so hooked into things that it helped me in certain places I would love to talk about, but I can't because I've agreed to keep it secret till later. But what does this mean overall? Does this mean that it's a better album than Epic? Is it a better thing than a lot of other stuff that's come out, like Six the Musical and whatnot? That's not what this whole thing's about. And if you guys do not know how this show works in the non-minis, then that's just kind of sad. That's just very fucking sad. I am disappointed in you. I'm getting the spray bottle now.
Wait for me, I'm coming. Wait.
The crux of what's making this episode a mini episode is not because I hate either productions or I'm not a fan of either. Far from it, I'm actually suppressing a lot of details I've been researching into both of them to make this episode a mini in comparison to my normal runtime of things. But here's the thing. I think that musicals have gotten a bad rap because so many different people view them as very playfully colorful operas that offer no substance. That is until the works of Hamilton, Dear Evan Hansen for some reason. People also bringing up Rent into the conversation, but and other works like the Beetlejuice musical, Mean Girls the musical, Six the musical, talking about the wives of Henry VIII, and so forth and so on. But when you're covering stuff that brings a new energy and vibe to stuff that makes you want to explore more the same way that Lin-Manuel Miranda has done with In the Heights and Hamilton, 21 Jump Street, and other productions of that accord, it's not about trying to make sure that wheel is spinning for all of you theater kids that want to be very stuck up. It's more about trying to access that vibe of the culture that you want to focus on that feels like they want to be involved too. That they want to have an enriching experience that feels like they can be engrossed in stuff without feeling like they're in an air of pretension. That you have to be in this classically trained sort of environment to feel like you're included in the grand love of music. Epic and Hadestown, two mythologically inspired musicals that nobody could have expected to work, actually bring out that whole methodology the best in how they accentuate what needs to be. Epic not only picked up on this vibe on TikTok for not only being video game inspired, but the passion that Jay accentuates in every single track to make sure that you can feel the eccentricities without even knowing a script involved or about what dialogue chains are going to go into what songs. That is something that is built off of talent, of someone that knows what they want to do to make others feel included, even if they don't like musicals. Hadestown, at the same time, was brought out in a very interesting time. Many people also kind of link it to certain real world stuff I would love to talk about, but I am not that person. I am not that kind of content creator. You go to a different person to go into the sphere about how build the wall is tied to and about other things. You got me? I hope so. It's from these things of touching the pulse that makes a lot of difference for me as someone that looks into media as a whole. Because I could say that Cats is something inspirational because of a tie to many people for what the concept of accepting death can be, or for what it is for a personal level for people that went to this musical not because they loved the show, but because they loved how they went to the show or who they went to see it with. I could talk about how Phantom of the Opera has been long-standing because of Andrew Lloyd Webber's weird obsession with having a masked guy take advantage of somebody by faking who they were as a catfish to then hopefully make them fall in love with them, even though that would not really work out and that homeboy deserves to go to jail. I could do all those things, but I'm focusing on the two shows that vastly different in many different ways, cover so many different things together in unity that I find it the most beautiful. You don't get that in other shows these days, and I'm hoping to see a reviving trend from other musicals I've been keeping my eyes on, and other productions, as a matter of fact, I've been keeping my eye on, to really showcase that you don't need to have a classical training, you don't have to feel like you need to be that Broadway kid to make a good show. You can do stuff with beautiful eccentricities by just having passion and soul that can attach itself to the viewership. That's more beautiful than anything. That's something that you can explore and make better. At least in my opinion anyway, I don't know. Well guys, that concludes the first episode of Muse Perspective Minis. The series I'm going to be doing to cover stuff I want to get into, but I feel like will take more time for the runtime than I have the capacity to cover. And honestly, I want to get to so many things, I do not think I'll have the proper time to give every detail required for all of these beautiful productions, artists, and or regular team endeavors. So next mini I will be doing, I will probably be covering a few different unknown artists I've wanted to talk about for years, but I've never had the chance to. It's kind of sad, but I'm trying my best here, guys. Please bear with me. Alright, peace.